Hey everybody, it's Tim again with another episode of Let's Build Something. Today we actually have a really quick video. This is going to be for people that want to mess with Excel's VBA function, or VBA programming language, sorry. I'm going to walk through how to enable to be even to develop in VBA in Excel, and also we're going to make this request right here. So we got this request on Reddit like we always do. We want to find practical problems so we can make practical solutions because, in my opinion, that's one of the best ways to learn how to program. And being multivariable in different types of languages is always a good thing. So this person wants to use TinyURL's URL shortening to basically, it looks like you put in multiple URLs into a typed or imported CSV, and then the output will just be a shortened URL, which it looks like they have an API, which it really is just it's just a PHP function, and you just pass in this get parameter, and what's it do? Let's say, okay, well that's going to be an error, but let's do https://industrialobject.com, and we go to that, and it works. So it looks like all it does is print this page, which actually, if we inspect the element just to see what the HTML looks like on this page, looks like it's just a pre. That's it, just a pre element with some text inside of it. Really nothing fancy, which is good because when working with VBA, you really want to keep things as not complicated as possible because VBA can very easily get messy. So anyway, that's what we're going to work on today. First thing is probably to show you how to enable VBA on a Windows machine. So of course you have to have Excel. I'm not doing this in LibreOffice or Numbers, I believe it's called on Mac. This is purely just Excel because I believe if we look at the specification, he doesn't say anything about doing Excel, but I'm going to make an assumption that this guy does have Excel or has access to Excel, simply because that's the way that I want to solve this problem. We could easily write a Python script that does the same thing, but why make him try and install Python? Let's just keep things easy. I'm sure he has access to Excel. Most people do. If not, you can go to your public library. So anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to make a blank workbook first, and we're going to have a column, and this is going to just testing data, essentially. That's all this column is going to be. So we're just going to have URL name, and we're going to have tiny URL name. And let's just make these a little wider. Okay, so what we'll do here is put https:// and we'll go to facebook.com. Actually, you know what? Oh, I'm about to open Facebook. Let's delete that. Actually, go to https:// let's go to google.com. That's probably better, just because. And https:// we can go to amazon.com. Okay, so that's really all we need. We really don't need to do much. So you'll see right here in my ribbon, I have developer enabled. So you may not see that in your view. Developer is not like, you don't need to have some special subscription to any Microsoft project as far as I'm concerned. You should just be able to enable this by going to File, going to Options, then going to Customize Ribbon, and then right here, this checkbox will be unchecked. I want you to check that, press OK, and now we've got developer enabled. This is where things can get really messy. So what I want to do is I want to create a function, and a function in Excel is different than a macro in a way. So it's this right here, doing this, we all know that function most likely. Doing this equal sign to anything, that is what I'm going to be calling a function. I'm pretty sure that's what it's named properly. But what we're going to do is we're going to create a function to where you can just call it, and then he can just, drag the function down all the way, and that will just work. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to open up Visual Basic. You click this little button up here, it opens up this really dated looking window. And what we're going to do is we're going to do File, let's see, View code. There we go. So actually, you know what the easier way to do this is to just go to macros, and then we're just going to call this TinyURL generator. So again, just click on macros. It's going to ask for one, but we don't have one. We're just going to click create, and you'll see that we're creating a sub right now. So a sub is pretty much a function declaration, and end sub is the end of that function declaration. So what we're actually going to do is we're not actually working with subs right now. We're going to be doing a public function, and this is case sensitive. So we're going to be, and then we also want to end the function. Look, it already did that. The second I clicked away, it automatically ended the function. The name of our function is going to be TinyURL generator, and what we're going to do is we're going to take in a variable that we're naming here, as you would with functions in any other programming language. We're going to take that in as a string, which is a data type, and then this will be called as a string. There we go. Okay, so this is actually where we get a little crafty. With Excel and it being a Microsoft product, you can actually have access to a web browser, which actually can be surprising to most people, not knowing that you can actually hit pretty much any web API with a VBA function. This is going to be actually more like web scraping. So we're actually gonna go to we're gonna actually load this web page, and we'll go to this, and we're gonna actually scrape this data off of this web page using Excel. I know it sounds confusing, but trust me, it's not that painful. So what we have to do is we have to create some variables, and the way you do that is with well, we're actually going to be creating an object right now that we're going to be using throughout the rest of this program, and you do that with set, and we're going to just call it, you know, object Internet Explorer, because it's going to be, let me do the right kind of casing. It's going to be, we're going to actually open up an Internet Explorer window. I know, gross, but it's actually going to be useful. So this will be maybe the third time Internet Explorer has ever been used since it's created, but that's okay. So create object, and what we're going to need to find is internet. Let's see. Now I'm sure you're asking, why are we using Internet Explorer? Why don't we use Chrome? Why don't we use something like that? It is actually way easier to just set up this to work with Internet Explorer, because this is a Microsoft product, and also you know that Internet Explorer is going to be installed on the machine. When Internet Explorer gets phased out, which it already actually kind of is, it'll still be on the computer, but it's pretty much just for legacy support applications, and that's kind of like in the pipeline, you know, in the internet world. So maybe Internet Explorer might not be available. Maybe this code might have to change in time, but like any code, it requires maintenance, and you have to stay up to date if you know, something you're using gets deprecated. So what we're going to do is actually we're going to set some parameters for the position and the width and height of the Internet Explorer window. These aren't necessary, but they're useful for debugging. So we're just going to keep them in the main code. We're going to go object IE dot top, which specifies pretty much the pixel value of where in the window we're going to be starting in the top left. So we're actually going to say 0, and then, you know what, we'll just do this, and we'll do left, and we're going to have this in all the way in the top left. Then we're going to have 2 more values that have to do with the dimensions of the window, and that's of course width and height. And we're going to just do a square 800 by 800 window, and so those should be pixel values. And if we go to object IE dot visible, we're going to set that equal to true for right now, and then we're going to actually tell, this is where we do the magic. We're going to do obj.IE dot navigate, which basically means open to this web page, and we're going to go to the URL endpoint, which is this. And what we're going to do then is concatenate our base URL onto the end, because that's really all we need to do. And now we're going to actually have to run kind of a function that pretty much if we try to run this immediately, if we try to scrape the page immediately, the page might not have loaded yet. So we actually need to wait for the page to load, and actually that is handled through essentially what is called a ready state. And once the ready state is equal to 4, why 4? Because that is, I mean, well, you can look up the documentation on ready states. So I guess it would be like ready states. And I mean, in Ajax, it's probably the same thing. For request is finished and response is ready. So you can see, they're changed from 0 to 4. 0 is request not initialized. 1 is server connection established. 2 is the request received. 3 is processing, but 4 is finished. And that is when you would get your 200 code and stuff like that. And the response is ready. And then, so we have to wait until stage 4 for us to be able to scrape this page, because we know that the data will be done and that the page is done loading. And the reason that this will work is because the page is statically loaded and there's no crazy kind of JavaScript going on in the front end where, yeah, the page is loaded, but it's technically not ready. So if you were trying to scrape a page that uses, say, like React as a front end, or Angular even, some of these dynamically loaded pages, this solution won't work for you. So keep that in mind. Anyway, what we do is we're going to execute a do, and we're going to do events, and then what we're going to look for is loop until, again, case sensitive, I know it's odd, and then we're going to look for the ready state, I think it's all lowercase, method, and we're going to wait until that is equal to 4. So we're just running this loop until the ready state's equal to 4. Once it is done, we want to set we want to return this. The last thing is being returned, and we'll put that down here, and we're going to go to obj.ie. This is where we do the scraping. We execute on the document element, which anyone that's familiar with HTML knows that the document is pretty much the root. It is the HTML tags or the body in some context, but in this case, I believe it is the body. And then we're just going to run a simple. It's actually more like JavaScript. It's just get elements by tag name, and we know that the tag is a pre-tag. We saw that from the HTML elements. It's a pre-tag, and so actually we could probably just do document.get elements by tag name. Pretty much we're going to be running what essentially looks like JavaScript. But you'll see I got the pre-tag. Right now it says the word error, but when we actually execute on a domain, on a valid domain, it will work. So you notice I use brackets in the console. You actually use parentheses here. I do not know why. It's kind of annoying, but that's just how you access index elements in VBA. And then we're just going to call inner text, which actually is a method, but you don't need to. It doesn't take any parameters, and you can't use this. This is using parentheses is not the correct way to go about doing this. So what we're going to do is we're just going to save this. We're going to ask to save the workbook. I'm just going to save it as a macro-enabled workbook, just because it gives me problems when I don't do it that way. Your mileage may vary. So what we should see is when we execute this function, a little Internet Explorer window should pop up. So now that we've saved the book and we created the macro and all that stuff, we should be able to call it like any other function. So you'll notice I started typing, and the type ahead found out that, yeah, hey, there's a function now. So I'm going to click that, reference that cell, click enter. Oh, use my other monitor. Let's see. TinyURL generator, and let's go to that. And let's see. So something is obviously going wrong because the value never loads, and actually we never get to where we need to be going. So here we go. Time to start debugging. There it is. Typed in IR because I'm so obsessed with infrared apparently. Let's try it again now. Enter. And you'll notice that actually on my other screen, because that's what top left is, it's not referencing this window that I'm streaming on. You'll notice that it opened up a 800 by 800 Internet Explorer window. We navigated to the API endpoint plus the data that we passed in, which was google.com. We loaded this page, we scraped it, and then returned that to the function. And now let's just drag it down. Oh, look at that. We generated a new function, and you'll notice that it opened up another Internet Explorer window at https://amazon.com. And if you want to validate this, we can copy it and go to the tiny URL, amazon.com. So the tiny URL is working and everything is good. Now, in order to prevent these Microsoft windows from popping up, the Internet Explorer, I mean, just change this to false and save it. And then you can close that. And essentially, this file that we have created this in, as long as the macro that we've written, the function that we've written, is saved to this workbook. So this workbook will have the function available wherever you bring it. So if you want to make the function available to another workbook, you pretty much have to import it, which is a whole nother thing. It's probably easier just to go to macros, create new, and then just copy and paste the code from one workbook to another. Truthfully, that's probably easier. And if, let's see what happens, we go to here, we don't get a value, obviously, because there's no web address. So I would actually task you with, how about this? If there's no value in this, if there's no URL, how about instead of returning a tiny URL, you return a value that says no domain listed. Let's do that. That is a project I ask you to handle. Look up VBA, get familiar with it. VBA can be extremely powerful. I have actually written some tools in VBA for small businesses that needed them, because so many businesses rely on Excel and they don't really want to or find it necessary to move to a web-related application. I mean, spreadsheets are life in business, as I'm sure many of you are familiar. So most times they're like, oh, if we can do it in Excel, let's just keep it in Excel. That's fine, but sometimes you need different solutions, and so VBA is another tool you can add to your tool belt, which I always advocate for, because what's the harm in knowing more? So we can consider this guy's request resolved. I am going to attach the GitHub Gist because it's such a small file. If you just wanted to quickly copy and paste it into a domain, and additionally, I will be probably posting this video to YouTube also, and also so this guy can actually get an idea of how we built it, with Bradsley, I would assume that's a man's name, but if they would like to know how we built it or anything like that, but this is awesome. This was a short little project, very quick video, but I really hope that you all enjoyed it. Really hope that we learned something, and I really hope that this kind of opens a door to the kind of scary world of VBA. You can truly do a lot with it, but you might pull your hair out in the process, but I guarantee you will become more valuable in a workplace because of it. And also, I mean, you can always make stuff for yourself too, which is really the great thing. So anyway, thank you guys for joining me on another episode of Let's Build Something, and I hope to post again in the near future. I realize there's kind of been a gap in time. But thank you.